The erection of a prefabricated house is a fairly quick process, preceded by planning the erection work, preparing the construction site, and organizing logistics for the timely arrival of the elements to the construction site. For example, the completion time of a 5-apartment row house is approximately 4 months, of which 1 month is for preparing the construction site and pouring the foundations and floor slabs, 8 to 10 days for erecting the building shell from flat elements, and the remaining time for interior and exterior work. Before assembling the elements, the communications, foundation, and groundwork must be completed. Next, the compliance of the foundation work is thoroughly inspected. The construction of the foundation typically includes building the first floor slab, installing thermal insulation and the heating system, and pouring the concrete slab, which later serves as the base for attaching wooden bottom beams for wall panel installation. Once these tasks are completed, the site is ready for element installation. Once the compliance of the foundation and baseboard with the established requirements has been verified, the locations of the walls are marked according to the floor plan, and the sills for the wall elements are installed. This makes it significantly easier and faster to assemble the wall elements later. Before the start of the erection work, a logistics plan is drawn up, which determines the order of arrival of the elements and their storage at the construction site. It is also important to determine the location of the crane to facilitate lifting work. All logistics must be synchronized with the erection of the building. Elements and materials must arrive at the construction site on time, according to the time course of the erection work. In the case of multi-story buildings, it is necessary to use scaffolding throughout the entire building to be erected. As a rule, scaffolding is installed immediately before the start of erection work and removed after the completion of external work. Scaffolding is assembled and dismantled on the construction site by a scaffolding rental company. Since the erection work needs to be done at a fast pace and involves lifting heavy elements, it is extremely important to follow all safety requirements. Before lifting, make sure that the lifting slings installed on the elements are undamaged and placed in the designated places so that the element to be lifted is balanced. The erection of a prefabricated building begins with lifting the elements to the erection area and, if necessary, to the storage area, where the elements or packs of elements are supported to prevent them from falling over. Then, the panels are installed on the timber sills on the floor slab. The elements are lifted and assembled in a certain order according to the installation plan. The elements are attached to the timber sills with screws and fixed with inclined supports to prevent them from falling over. The joints between the elements are made according to the working drawings or standard details provided by the company. To simplify the connections, the corresponding places are left open when assembling the elements in the factory. On the construction site, when assembling the elements into a single wall, the levelness must be checked regularly and corrections made if necessary. Several environmental factors, such as wind, rain, and snow, can strongly affect the construction process of a building. Therefore, companies have developed their own rules when construction work is not started or is stopped in the event of heavy rainfall or wind. In any case, excessive moisture in the structural elements must be avoided. In case of doubt, control measurements are carried out. The amount of moisture is measured with a moisture meter, and its reading must be below the prescribed limit value. In general, the moisture content of wooden structures should not exceed 18%, but the requirements may also differ from country to country. However, if an accident has occurred and the elements have been damaged by moisture, the structure must not be closed until the excess moisture has dried out. Once the wall panels on the first floor have been installed and fixed, the next step is to start building the intermediate ceiling. To do this, the panels are lifted on top of the wall elements. The panels are installed in order according to the installation plan, as the size of the panels depends on their location. Once all the panels have been installed, a complete intermediate ceiling is finally formed, which serves as the basis for the construction of the next floor. The installed panels are temporarily covered with a strong plastic to protect them against the possible precipitation. Once the first floor of the building has been erected and the joints between the wall and ceiling elements have been securely sealed, the construction process continues to the next floor. First, the temporary protective plastic, installed to against precipitation, must be removed from the intermediate floor elements. Crane lifting hooks are then attached to the lifting eyes of the elements in the storage area, and the supporting structures are removed. Next, the second floor wall elements are lifted onto the intermediate floor elements of the lower floor. These wall elements are leveled, secured with angled supports, and attached to the sills. The joints between the elements are completed, and tightening wool is applied. The tightening wool prevents air channels from forming within the structure, which can otherwise lead to heat loss and, in the event of a fire, the potential spread of flames between elements. While some wall elements are being installed, the next elements are prepared for lifting in the storage area. With careful advance planning, the entire construction process can proceed quickly and smoothly. Finally, when the number of stories has been reached, roof elements are raised onto the wall elements of the last floor. The roof elements also give the roof its final shape. Most factory buildings have either a gable roof, a single pitched roof, or a flat roof. The exact shape of the roof depends on the architectural solution of the building. For a single pitched roof, a good solution is to use truss-based roof elements, which are transported to the site immediately after the wall elements of the last floor have been erected. The roof elements are lifted into place according to the installation plan. Once the elements are in place, they are fixed to the wall elements. The roof elements must be attached according to the developed technical solutions. Since the roof is subject to large forces, including lifting forces, in the event of a strong wind, the fastening solutions developed by the engineers must be followed very precisely. The overall installation process of the roof elements is fast, which must also be taken into account when planning logistics to avoid downtime. Once the roof elements have been installed, the sealing of the joints between the exterior wall elements can begin. This process involves sealing and taping the joints, followed by the attachment of battens and the installation of the missing exterior cladding. The shelters and balconies intended for the building are installed after the main structure has been assembled. For this purpose, appropriate places are provided for the wall elements and, if necessary, supports are also installed to which the connecting external element is attached. Once the installation of the roof elements is complete, the next step is to cover the roof with the final roofing material. Rolled material is mostly used on flat roofs, which can be either bitumen-based or PVC. If the coating is PVC-based, then an open flame is not used during installation, but a special heater is used to join the tiles of the coating material together. Bitumen-based roll material, also called SBS coating, is installed with an open flame burner. For this purpose, special gas burners are used, which are connected to propane gas cylinders raised to the roof. After the roof covering is installed, gutters are attached to the edge of the roof, and drainage pipes are installed in the designated places. Once the exterior work on a completed planar element building has been completed, it is very difficult to understand later what type of building it is: a planar element or modular house. In both cases, the installed exterior cladding may cover all joints, and the structural solution used can only be seen from the building design. Interior work will begin immediately after the assembly work is completed. First, open structural parts will be closed. Uninsulated frame gaps will be filled with mineral wool and covered with building boards. If there is no ceiling element on the upper floor, the ceiling will be constructed on-site. A vapor barrier membrane will be installed at the bottom edge of the ceiling beams. The ceiling vapor barrier will be connected to the wall vapor barrier using the designated tape. Then, battens will be installed, to which the ceiling boards will be attached later. The wet room work carried out on the construction site includes both the installation of waterproofing and tiling. The rooms will be fitted with a suspended ceiling and lighting, as well as a toilet, shower or bathtub, sink cabinet, and other furnishings agreed upon in the contract. Residential premises may also include saunas. At the construction site, insulation boards behind the lining, a moisture barrier, an inner lining and tiling work are installed on the sauna walls, as well as ventilation, lighting, and electrical connections. Technical and structural work usually takes several weeks before interior finishing work can begin. If the elements have previously factory-installed conduits for electrical installations, then after assembly, the wiring of wires or cables will begin. In places where sockets and junction boxes have already been installed in the factory, they will be connected to the wiring at the construction site. The necessary connections for both high and low current are made in the electrical panels. Several technical systems, such as the ventilation system, heating and water system, as well as the kitchen electric stove and partial lighting, are related to electricity consumption. During the construction site work, their installation and the necessary connections are made so that all systems are in working order and in the required readiness when the dwelling is handed over. Buildings usually have a balanced ventilation system, which can be either room-based or central, especially in larger buildings. In the case of a room-based ventilation system, a ventilation unit is installed in the location specified in the project, for example behind the bathroom ceiling, and ventilation ducts are installed in the rooms. Ventilation ducts can be hidden behind suspended ceilings or in corresponding boxes built into the corners of the room, covering the pipes. The air exhaust system above the kitchen stove is located separately and operates independently. As a rule, it is not connected to a heat exchanger, but has an outlet directly to the outside air. In the case of water-based underfloor heating, the heating pipes and cabling on the first floor are already precast in the floor slab. However, the heating pipes are usually laid in the intermediate floor on the construction site, as the floor of one living space may consist of several panels, which is why it is not possible to install a single pipe system in the factory. Electric underfloor heating, if used, is usually only in the bathroom and can also be pre-installed in the factory. The heating system as a whole can be based on gas, heat pumps, pellet heating, or it can also be central. The corresponding heating devices are installed in a designated technical room in the building. In the case of central heating, larger buildings have a common technical room from which heating water is distributed between the living rooms. Heat pumps are mostly based on living rooms, but it is also possible for one heat pump to supply several living rooms. During the assembly of the building, the elements that join each other are attached according to the solutions shown in the working drawings. After the connections are made, during the interior work, the joints are finished. The corners of both the ceilings and walls are sealed with elastic mastic and painted. The corners of the ceilings are also covered with corner moldings if necessary. The joints between the elements are most noticeable in the stairwell, where the elements of the lower and upper floors meet. Depending on the technical solutions developed, the joint is either covered with a molding or an elastic mastic is installed there, which allows it to deform when the building sinks. When it comes to opening fillings, the installation of doors must be considered on the construction site. After installation, the area around the frames of interior doors must be sealed, the cover strips must be attached, and the door must also be adjusted. The windows are usually already installed in the factory. If necessary, the area around the windows must be finished as site work, adding seals, installing window frames and window sills. While interior doors may not be pre-installed at the factory, the exterior door must be directly in front of the building. Because there is a risk that the exterior door may be damaged during construction, temporary exterior doors are installed on the building. They are only replaced at the end of the construction. To start interior finishing work, the building must have the required indoor climatic conditions, air temperature, and relative humidity. It is necessary to have functioning ventilation that can ventilate the usually large amount of moisture accumulated in the building. Moisture enters the building both from the drying of the poured concrete slab and from interior finishing work. During the winter period, heating must be running, for which blowers are usually used to maintain the required indoor temperature. Dehumidifiers are used to dry out excess moisture. Interior finishing works include puttying and covering walls and ceilings with fabric and paint, as well as tiling, installation of parquet, linoleum, or PVC covering material, possible repairs, and other works necessary to give the interior the intended appearance. After the completion of the interior finishing works, the building is thoroughly cleaned and sanitized. Then it is handed over to the client. The client carries out its own inspection of the building. If any irregularities are found during the inspection, a time is agreed upon during which the repairs will be carried out, and a new inspection time. If the client is satisfied with the work, the keys to the building are handed over to the client. After that, the building is subject to a warranty period, the length of which is previously agreed upon and fixed in the contract.